Here's Chris Maher, host of FFM93 Live.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 9 of FFM93 Live. We are here, we are live on YouTube. And again, just to let everybody know this, I want to make sure that this is clear. If you do miss the live actual portion of the show, it will be posted on Spotify and Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast after I am done, recording and all that stuff. So today we got a good amount on the show. I was supposed to have Bob Roadtruck from the Phantoms. Unfortunately, Bob, we had to reschedule with that. So as of right now, as I'm trying to fix the microphone, there we go. As of right now, we have Travis Ballinghoff, who is the producer of Nasty Knuckles, does all that stuff for the podcast with Derek Settlemire and Riley Cote. We recorded last night, did around an interview around 20 minutes or so, so that'll air in a little bit. And then Jim Jackson, the Flyers announcer, will be joining me around 3:45 to talk about the upcoming season and some more stuff. So let's get right into it because, rookie camp started yesterday. As most people saw, I did the video where I talked about a good amount of things from rookie camp, and just to kind of reiterate some of those things, it wasn't much. It was more of just drills, and essentially, everything that was kind of going on throughout the entire, session. I guess that's what you want to call it. It was more of just drills, just moving throughout the neutral zone, getting pucks on net, speed, things like that. Ryan, what's up, man? How are you? I wasn't going to miss 2 weeks in a row. As soon as I saw you comment that, I knew that you were going to be in here, so I'm glad you're back. What's up, dude? Isaiah, what's up, man? How are you? And Paul, what's up, man? How you doing? Again, for rookie camp, again, it was more of drills yesterday. It wasn't anything really crazy. We got some clarification on the lineup for tonight. We have the full lineup up now for the first rookie game of 2. Hey, Tristan, what's up, buddy? Again, a lot of rookie camp was, again, it was more drills. It was more getting reps, things like that. And again, it seemed more faster paced than usual. I don't know if that's maybe me thinking in the optimistic side of things, but it did seem more energetic, I should say. Again, I'm not, obviously it's different because it's rookie camp, and I did not see Tortorella there. I don't know if he was in the building, but I did not see him. I know the other Flyers brass and the player developmental staff was there as well. But again, as for majority of camp, a couple updates here. So Zamula, they said that, well, Zamula actually came out himself after and said that he was up 12 pounds. So he spent a lot of time in the gym, on the ice, things like that. So he's now listed as 192 pounds. He did gain some weight, which is great news because if a lot of people remember the last handful of games there towards the end of the year, Zamula and majority of the Flyers, right, because they had nobody. And they didn't have anyone. And what they were trying to do was not get Zamula injured, and they were afraid to call him up, and that's why he only played such a shorter stint than usual, than he probably would have. But again, he was just so lanky, and everything went wrong last year with on the injury side of things. Obviously, there were many other things as well. But again, he went up to 192 pounds, and then Ian LaPerriere, Phantom's head coach, said that 2 years ago that Zamula came in and he was around 170. So now he's 192. So in 2 years, he's gained 192 pounds. And then Bill Meltzer had a tweet earlier when he came, I believe is one of his first camps or something along those lines. He was like 160. So he's gained like 32, around like 33 pounds in the last handful of years, which is good because he's a lankier, taller defenseman and he kind of needs some of that weight. His English has also gotten better as well. For a couple other guys, he said Wyatt Wiley looks a lot better physically as well. And again, Wiley is still younger, so there is that kind of period of time where he can, still compete for an NHL spot. Jeffrey, hey, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Again, more of camp, like there weren't really many other updates. I personally wasn't able to go to morning skate today. I was down at school this morning. But again, there were some updates. And as for tonight's game, the first rookie game, the lineup against the Rangers from Ian LaPerriere is first line is Noah Cates, Jackson Cates, and Tyson Forster, like I mentioned in the video yesterday. So that we know. Owe Lixel, Elliot Dinoye, and Zaid Wisdom, Alexi Gendron, Jacob Gaucher, and Theo Rochette on the third line, Tyler Savard, Mikhail Hutchett, and Ty McSorley on the fourth line, Brian Zanetti and Wiley is the first pair defense. Adam Ginning and Ethan Sampson is the second pair defense. Mason Millman and Adam Karashek is the third pair defense. So there is going to be a little bit of a switch tomorrow. I'd assume the offense is going to be all the same. The defense will be a little bit different. So we'll see Zamula, we'll see Addard. As for Ginning and Sampson, that'll probably stay together. And Nolan Maher and Jonathan Lemieux will be the goaltenders tonight in the rookie game. Now, the thing is, it's not streamed and it's not on TV. So I would, if for people that are remote like myself, I won't be there. So I'll be obviously looking at Twitter, and I would suggest doing that as well if you are planning on trying to watch it, because unfortunately it's not streamed or it's not anything, which kind of stinks. But again, most of essentially everything, as for updates and stuff, there are a handful of more that probably will be coming tomorrow, but I did get a call about my thoughts on rookie camp and a couple players as well, so I'm going to play that right now.
Hey, Chris, it's your old dad here. Got a question for you regarding two players. I know you've been, at development camp, and now, rookie camp is opening up. Just curious your thoughts on Zamula and also on Wisdom. Obviously been at camps as well, and I think both are going to be really solid players, but I'd like your thoughts on them. Thanks.
All right. So, Dad, thank you for calling in. Always appreciate it. I love when my dad calls in. Yeah, so again, obviously camp and all that stuff, I obviously just talked about that. But as for Zamula and Wisdom, they are two guys that I am looking to see more out of. Zamula, again, in the stint last year, I thought he played pretty well. I mean, for what it was and how, unfortunately the team wasn't great. But when you're looking at that and you're looking essentially just at the team perspective and how he played, I thought he played pretty well. As for Wisdom, he really, he shocked everybody in 2020-21 when he was up with Lehigh Valley. He played some pretty solid games there. I believe he had 18 points in 28 games, something along those lines. And he played pretty well for just jumping right out of junior and kind of going straight into the American League. But as for Wisdom, I think it's more of the same thing. You kind of want to see that similar type thing with him and his game. And for the most part, I would also think that for him, I guess you could say probably put on a little bit more weight. But overall, I personally kind of like, the way that Zamula and Wisdom is played. Again, it's different because it's been more of just drills and stuff. I'm more curious to see how they play in the actual game, because I don't think a lot of rookies are going to get in preseason games, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's going to be more of a veteran type camp and a more of a veteran preseason lineup. There's only 6 games. They're spread out with some days. There's a couple, I think there's one back-to-back by my memory. I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like a lot of it is going to be more of veterans. And when you have veterans like that, and you have guys that are, at least trying to compete for a spot, and obviously the Flyers have to be ready. I mean, there is no bad start this year. I mean, it's just not, it's just not part of the question. It really isn't. Jeffrey says, what's up with Brassard joining Giroux and the Sens? I saw that. I did not see the AAV. I'm going to look that up now. But look, Ottawa is completely changed in like one season. So it was a PTO, so he didn't actually get signed to a contract yet. Okay. Yeah, so again, I mean, look, Ottawa has completely changed their team. I mean, they have Kachuk now. or they've had Kachuk. They have DeBrink now. DeBrincat, Giroux. They added all these different guys. They added Tyler Mott, who's a solid depth piece. Broussard, who I still think can play if healthy, because obviously everybody knows all the injuries he was dealing with. It's kind of unfortunate because I like Broussard and I would have rather kept him, but the Flyers ended up moving him out for a pick at the deadline. This one comes from Tristan. Igor Zamula, his favorite, wants him to play more games. Do I see Zamula making the team out of camp? I don't right now. I think the guy who makes it out of camp is Cam York on the defense. I think the Flyers defense is pretty set in stone. I think Torts might be obviously tinkering with some things, but I feel like it's going to be more of, Provorov, D'Angelo, Sanheimer, Stalainen, York, Braun, and then most likely Adard. To me, Adard is the 7th D, and then I would rather have Sealer at the 8th spot, and then if it had to even go that far, then Connaughton at the 9th spot, but there obviously will never carry 9 defensemen. It'll just be on the depth chart. So, I would rather have Adder because I feel like he's a legit NHL player. Or at least he can be by the end of the season, I should say. I feel like right now they have at least 3 solid defensemen that they can kind of work with in the prospect pool. And it's Zamula, it's Adard, and it's Emil Andre. Unfortunately, Andre got the puck to the face the other day in one of the SHL games. And the SHL actually just signed something with, I believe, ESPN, and they have that whole new TV thing. So that'll be pretty cool to see some of their games. But going off of Jeffrey here, he has a question. How is Ellis doing? Do you think that he is going to have a good season? Ellis he's in the area. He was at Voorhees. I don't know if he's skating. I don't really know how he's doing. I wasn't given any sort of update. Neither was the media. I really haven't seen anything. I know that he was here, and that was really realistically the last update that I had seen. But as of today, I don't have anything on Ellis, which is really unfortunate because that trade really has kind of stunk, because when you think about it, we looked like the clear winner. And if I'm being honest with you, we were easily the clear loser. Like, to me, like I look at that trade now, and there's absolutely no way that the Flyers or Nashville or whatever team, Vegas, didn't know as the ice cream truck's going by, as like, to me, it was just like as if nobody knew that something was wrong with Ellis. There's just no way to me that no one knew anything that there was something wrong or anything like that. But we're getting into the almost the about a quarter way through the show. Gonna bring in the interview here from Travis. Again, Travis does great work. I mean, he's awesome. He actually was the guy who took the picture that's not my Twitter banner. He's taken the one that's I use for the show constantly, the one of me that's on the bench from the Warriors game. He does great stuff from obviously Nasty Knuckles. If anybody watches that, he's one of the geniuses behind that. And then he's really good at video and pictures and all that stuff. So give him a follow on Twitter and YouTube. I put it at the end of the interview if you want to check him out. But again, he does great stuff. So again, Travis, thanks as always, dude. And if you're listening, I don't know if he is, but again, let's play that interview now. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the show here. And today I'm joined by the producer of Nasty Knuckles, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who does literally everything and is always tweeting, whether it's Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, all that good stuff. Travis Ballinghoff. Travis, thanks for doing this, dude. Appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Long time coming, but good to see you. Feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I know. We literally saw each other, 4 hours ago? Yeah, dude. I mean, look, it has been a long time coming. For a while. I always wanted to get you on, but the schedules just didn't. I don't think really aligned back when I started it. But anyway, again, good that you're here now. And Flyers are starting up soon. We got rookie camp starting this weekend. Rookie camp ends today. overall, did you have any thoughts from rookie camp, or were you more just focused on getting picks and video?
Yeah, honestly, Tyson Forster stood out.
Mm-hmm.
Had a couple of nice snipes. I'm sure you saw a
Yeah.
couple, or I think he had one water bottle popper.
Mm-hmm.
He was really the only one that stood out. So I guess it was a lot of 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drills,
Yeah.
neutral zone work and breakouts and all that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, Noah Cates, he
Yeah.
didn't stand out too much to me today, but I'm looking forward to what we see from him in the future.
Yeah, me too. No, for sure. And again, I think, Forster, and it's funny they talked about it in post game too. He said he felt post game and after interview, he said he felt the healthiest he's ever felt, and he's ready for camp. So that's obviously good news. I personally thought Noah Cates, I actually thought he was more noticeable in the one-on-one type drills that were more of like, the body up against body type thing, because he's bigger and obviously played NHL games. Speaking of Noah and actually that line that he was on with Frost. um what did you kind of think of that line towards the end of the year? Because if I'm being honest with you, I personally would like it to stay. Because I have a feeling going into camp that even though everybody, like, for me, I want Frost to be wing. For right now, he's my second line left winger.
Yeah.
But I obviously I feel like they're going to give him a shot and see what Torts thinks of him in the center position. What did you think of that line? And do you see Morgan Frost kind of being a center moving forward?
So on your last point about him going to wing, I wouldn't mind that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind him in a top six role playing with either Coots or Hazy. But I also think Scott Lawton's a better winger than he is centerman.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't mind seeing him on the second line to start the season and going forward with that Tippett, Cates, Frost line, like you mentioned. They were one of the few bright spots of last season.
Yeah.
And I guess it was somewhat of a short sample size because it was late in the year.
Yeah.
But they played well together. And that would be my third line to pencil in.
Okay. Yeah, no, and again, I feel like that's fair. I mean, for most of everybody, I mean, again, I feel like, again, I agree. I think a lot of it was more of the bright spot towards the end of the year. See, for me, for me right now, I would rather have Lawn at the fourth line center,
Okay.
because I think that kind of solidifies the fourth line. I mean, if you, like Atkinson said it the other day, like the Islanders fourth line, trying to be like the Islanders fourth line, the Rangers fourth line, right? They have guys like Reeves, they have Matt Martin, we have Nick Delorier now. You have that kind of mix of the physical element, but it seems like they really like Patrick Brown. And he actually, I don't know if you saw, I was about as good a text you when I saw him, but Brown was actually on the other rink when they moved.
Oh,
So
wow.
when they left to the other rink, Brown went on, and he looked like again, I don't want to say he's injured, because I don't think he is. And I'm not going to say, because I don't know, but he didn't look like he was putting much weight down. So again, I'm not sure if he'll place, but again, that's obviously off topic a little bit, but kind of going just into the Flyers as a whole, right? I mean, look, they get Torts, they get Shaw, they get Thompson. What did you kind of think of that? All those of the three coaching staff hires.
Rocky Thompson definitely intrigues me.
Mm-hmm.
And so does Brad Shaw. You know what? You
Yeah.
hear a lot of good things about him. An aggressive penalty kill coach.
Yeah.
Something we haven't had in a while. I think that'll benefit Hazy and Cam, two guys who are pretty good penalty killers who are dangerous shorthanded.
Yeah.
I think that'll help them. I think it'll help the entire unit. Too often they're just kind of sitting back waiting for passes to go through, and they're not able to intercept them, and it's in your net backdoor.
Right.
So maybe an aggressive penalty kill coach can help both the wingers, the forwards, and the defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
Thompson, I don't know much about his style. I know his history in the NHL, and I know him and Evander Kane got into it a little bit. So I'm kind of intrigued by that. He seems like a good personality to have.
Yeah.
I want to see more movement on the power play, kind of going back to when Joey Mullen was the coach. Say whether it was Danny B and Claude Giroux, or if it was Jeff Carter and Danny Briere, or some mix of the three, they're always kind of circling around that left dot. and someone would drift backdoor, someone would be in the G spot, that kind of thing. I want to see more of that, kind of more movement on the power play. I have a lot of worries about the power play because it's not just one thing that's wrong.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's completely fair too, but go ahead.
We really haven't had a bumper presence since Braden Shen was traded.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest problems with the power play. Zone entries is another big problem.
Yeah.
When you get rid of Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek, it's like,
Right.
and Ghost. I mean, who do you have?
Right,
Tony,
exactly.
Tony's
and those were the guys that got the puck in for you.
Yeah, like they added Tony DeAngelo, who's a good power play quarterback, but his specialty isn't bringing the puck into the zone.
Mm-hmm.
So he will help, but they have to fix a couple other things to really get the power play going in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. I mean, the power play isn't just one issue. I mean, it's more of the fact that if you look at recent seasons and the way that they have done it, they've changed things when they shouldn't have. That's pretty clear. I said it to you many times, and I've even tweeted about it and talked about it before. Whether it was this podcast or a video or whatever, the fact that randomly last year around Halloween they just switched the power play units on the road trip, and the power play just fizzled out for the entire season and was terrible after that. They in 1920, people might remember they had the double net front presence.
I love that.
Connecting and JVR just went away from it. I loved it too. It was great. There's been many things that they have done that really hasn't helped the power play, if I'm being honest with you. For me, I know you mentioned bumper presence. For me, it's Wade Allison. If he's healthy, I want Allison in the bumper. When they had him in 2021, when he played, I believe it was 14 games to end out the year there, he played pretty well. They had him at the front of the net, pretty much a net front, and I didn't like that. I would have rather him been in the bumper. Obviously, you have a lot more options as well because, then you still had Giroux and you had those guys kind of solidified in them spots still. As for, power play quarterback, I'd personally like to see, I feel like it's DeAngelo, but I was curious what you thought of this too. If Sanheim, if you think he gets a shot, or Cam York.
So if I'm coach, Tony would quarterback my first power play and Cam York would quarterback my second power play. I don't really know if Sanheim's good or bad there because they really have never given him a real shot. If they did, it was 2 games at most, right? But even just like kind of breaking down Sanheim's game, he's better at getting the puck from the D zone and skating it up ice. So that maybe that could help with the zone entries. But from just like standing at the point, quarterback in the power play, I don't know. We've never seen it. Tony's good at it. Cam York, in the short sample size we've seen, I think he's good at it. I think he could be a guy who helps with the zone entries, Cam York.
I agree there.
Maybe I'm kind of intrigued by putting Frost where Giroux used to stand on his strong side on the top unit.
Okay.
And maybe have Joel on the right side. I don't know who stands in front of the net. I guess they're going to give it to JVR.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's probably the best bet.
And then
because I really don't want Ristolainen in front of the net. I can tell you that right now.
So I'm not against trying that on the second unit.
Okay.
At least to start the season. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work and you get rid of it.
Right, yeah.
But I don't really know who else you have. Like you mentioned Wade Allison. I don't like him there because his best attributes is shot.
Right, exactly.
So whether he's on his, I wouldn't mind him on the weak side or like you said in the bumper. I want him in one of them 2 spots. Maybe it works on the strong side, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts.
No, for sure. I mean, I feel like the other thing that they have to clean up is faceoffs, winning the offensive zone draw because they don't do that enough. And losing Giroux and losing all of the centers they had last year, their faceoff percentage, I think after Giroux left, might have went down like 15% in 3 games. Like it was bad. And you could tell because they were chasing the puck. And whether they even were winning the faceoffs or not, they were still chasing the puck. So that was clearly an issue. And I'm sure that they'll, want to get better faceoffs because they've been as mediocre as they've been over the past handful of years now, even more than a handful, they've always been a good faceoff team.
Yeah.
I mean, even with Giroux and Couturier, I mean, they molded Raffled where he essentially could take any faceoff at any time when he just came over here as a winger, like all that different stuff. But just curious, like your thoughts on this, because some people there's really no in between with the fans right now. It's either they think the Flyers are going to be bad, or they think the Flyers are going to be okay, or there's that handful that think that they might actually be a solid team this year, or at least maybe be able to compete. I don't know. I personally don't have any expectations, but do you have any or no?
Any real expectations? No.
Mhm.
Most of the offseason, I was kind of in the boat that they were going to be bad. I guess there's a slight chance that they kind of rally behind the whole, no one expects us to do anything. Let's go out and prove a point here. Maybe that happens. It actually wouldn't surprise me if that happens, but that's
Yeah.
not the way I'm leaning.
Right.
I just don't think they have enough high-end skill.
Okay.
I don't think they could be a real contender. Maybe they can sneak in as a wild card, like I said,
Yeah.
if they kind of take that approach. Everyone's
Right.
counting us out.
No, for sure. And I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think, look, I'm not gonna sit here and say they don't have talent. Like to me, that's just moronic.
Mhm.
Because they have talent. I mean, they have skill in different areas. Do they have enough is the question. It's not do they have it, it's just do they have enough? No, they do not have enough to compete with some of these other teams, especially in the Metro. I mean, everybody knows the Metro is the top division every year. It's always the 5 teams from the Metropolitan that are making the playoffs, right? That whole kind of thing. It's very rare when it's like a 4-4 kind of split, especially over the last handful of years. But is there anything right now that you think the Flyers absolutely need, even though they don't really have the money or resources to do it, because they're at 49 to 50 contracts, they're already in negative of cap space. But looking ahead, looking after 2022-23, what are some things that you think the Flyers need? I know it's kind of a crystal ball type question, but
David Pasternak and Matt Barzell. If I'm going to be blunt,
yeah,
like you
right.
said, they have talent, but it's kind of like they don't have the elite high end talent. They have a lot of middle six guys, bottom six guys. I think they're going to have good depth this year.
Yeah.
But it's just like when you look at the Flyers' point totals at the end of the year, maybe Coots gets 80 points and that's it. I mean,
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if Travis Konechny bounces back. I'm a big Travis Konechny guy. The guy's got talent. He's got insane high-end talent,
Yeah.
but it's slipped the last 2 years. And for whatever reason, I mean, you could point to a bunch of different things and say, maybe it's this, maybe it's that.
Right. Yeah.
Outside of them two guys, and they're question marks, right? It's like you look at Boston. Well, these, if Bergeron, Pasternak, and Marchand play 80 games, they're going to get over 80 points. You look at Washington
Right.
and Pittsburgh, like there's all these guys who it's like you're going to pencil in for point per game.
Mhm.
We might have 2,
Yeah.
probably 1.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I mean, if you look at, like, again, if you're just comparing the Metropolitan Division, and I did do a video on this the other day, every other team got better. I mean, Christ, even Columbus got better. They got Johnny Gaudreau. So when you're looking at Columbus gets Gaudreau, New Jersey gets Palat, the Capitals get Kemper and Strome and Connor Brown. Pittsburgh keeps everybody together. The Rangers get Trocheck. It's like the whole division, and the Islanders didn't do anything. But the Islanders are expecting to still be better, and you can't really ride them off until, you know what I mean? So it's tough, and I agree. I mean, I feel like right now, first of all, could you imagine Matt Barzal and David Pastrnak in the Flyers jersey? But
I
anyway,
love Pasta, man. I
I
think
do
that would be
too.
sick.
I know, dude. And it's funny, like there's certain players and certain teams that I like to watch, even when they don't play the Flyers. The Rangers and the Bruins are 2 of them, even though I hate them when they play us. But when they don't, I love watching them because they're just so good. Like every year, they're just a consistently good team. More on the Boston side of things. But kind of getting back to the Flyers a little bit, who do you think will be the Flyers captain? There's been a lot of questions of it, whether it's Couturier or Lawton, Cam Atkinson. The Flyers right now have Couturier alone as the banner on their Twitter page. He was the
Okay, I
one
didn't see
who,
that.
yeah, he was the one who introduced the new
Yeah.
Snyder hockey rink. it seems like that might be the way they're going, even though Torts hasn't said anything and doesn't think that they'll be naming a captain anytime soon. And if that is the case, then that's the case. But what do you think?
Who I want to be the captain is Scott Lawton.
Mm-hmm.
I love that guy. One of my favorite players. I love the way he plays. I think he keeps getting better and better too.
Mm-hmm.
All along, I've kind of thought Sean Couturier
Okay.
with Cam Atkinson being a dark horse.
Yeah.
But kind of recently, I'm kind of thinking maybe they don't name one at all.
Okay. How come?
Kind of I guess Torts was on that radio show on NHL Network's radio channel, whatever that is, Sirius NHL.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just kind of a hunch I have. They don't name a captain this year.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, especially with everything that's gone on the last handful of years. Now this one's a little bit more of a personal question. Obviously, you're the producer, the one who you and Debo are the two guys that put all the magic behind Nasty Knuckles and obviously all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a favorite moment from your time with Nasty Knuckles?
If
you had to pick one thing.
Well, we recorded with Wade Allison a week or two ago, and he's been by far my favorite guy we've recorded with.
Okay.
He's just like such a cool dude. Like we're sitting there talking about fantasy football and kind of like his training and like what he's been doing since he got back in town. I really like him. I've gotten to photograph 2 different alumni games while being with Nasty Knuckles, and I've gotten to be on the bench for both of them.
Yeah.
That was really cool. And then I got to hang out with the guys afterwards. So I guess, one of those 2 moments.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I remember you doing the alumni game. You had the intro video that blew up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I mean, especially and again, Nasty Knuckles is great. If you don't listen to it already, I don't know what you're doing. You're living under a rock. But again, Travis, dude, thanks so much for doing this. Again, you can check out Travis on Twitter, YouTube. And I'll put links to all of his stuff in the description below. It'll be on the screen here, as you can see. But for after the show and stuff like that, you can just check it out right into the description below. But yeah, dude, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I hope to come back on soon.
Yeah, dude, for sure. All right, so that was Travis Ballinghoff from Nasty Knuckles. Travis, thank you so much, dude, for joining me. I appreciate it. Always a good time. Always a pleasure talking to you. One of my good friends. Yeah, so moving on. I feel like the last handful of weeks, there's been a lot of talk of which certain player plays here and plays where, and there's been a couple comments about that as well. So let's bring those up. After what we saw in that Pittsburgh game, I honestly consider no Cates in the front. That's fair. I think we could see that. I feel like especially because Cates is more. I feel like Cates is more just kind of like player that's kind of just drawn to go to the net anyway, because he's that type of player anyway. That's not really like, oh, you got to go to the net, but he kind of already has the instinct to go to the net. So that's fair, Paul. I could see that too. He had 2 goals. Yeah, he did have 2 goals in that deflection. That was a 4-1 win. Ranchero, what about Morgan Frost? What do you mean? I'm not too sure what you mean about that. Carter H. I think Coots and Konechny get 65 to 70. If Fabry wasn't hurt, I'd say he get around 60s. That's fair. I kind of feel like, I mean, I don't think Fabry's going to be out that long to where his points are going to be that scaled off, I guess. I feel like for Couturier and Konechny, I think that's perfectly fair. Again, I think it all depends on their power play. I mean, the only way that they're going to score more is if the power play can produce, and obviously they'll score in even strength, and there are other little areas they have to get better at. I mean, I think they were like one of the like top 3 teams that had the most empty net goals against last year. Obviously the penalty kill wasn't great. I mean, like there were so many little of those like stats. It's just like, oh great, that we lead in because we were so bad. And it's funny because these 2 comments here are the 2 complete opposites of the fan base. Mean Metal Mike says tank hard for Connor Bedard. Jeffrey Savage says don't tell the Flyers to tank. So it's a mix. I mean, everybody, it's either you want to tank, you don't want to tank, whatever. Ryan says it's weird. I want the young players to play good, but I also like a top 10 pick this year, if that makes any sense. It makes sense. It completely makes sense. Look, I mean, the Flyers were not good last year. I mean, everybody's gonna have a different type of opinion on it because everybody wants something different. And realistically, the only way that things will change is if, you know, the only way that things are actually going to change in the sense of like, you know, like a different type of game presentation and all that different stuff, right? That everybody's been crying about for years. And again, I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's just more of like, because I personally agree with some of that stuff. But the only way that stuff will change is if the building's empty. And this might be honestly the year that the home opener may not be sold out. Like I'm dead serious about that. Like, I don't know if the home opener will. I mean, last year it was different because it was like, you know, that was kind of the one-off kind of thing, even though they still consider the last 2 years a one-off, which is kind of weird to me. But you have, you know, last year's game was one of the best games of the season, the home opener. They had lost in the shootout, but the sick goal from Giroux at the end of the game, I was going absolutely nuts, just total bananas. Because that story is so funny because me and my dad were walking. We were about to leave because they were down by 2 and there was a couple minutes left. But I never leave, but we kind of just planned to get down to Lower Bowl to get out of there quicker to get to the car and beat all the traffic. Anyway, we do that, all that stuff. Then Konechny scored. It was 4-3, and then Giroux scored. And I was like, I told you. I was saying it to my dad because I knew that they were going to tie that game. But anyway, it's a different story. Flyers need to definitely improve on the power play. 100%. It is one of the main focuses for the season once they actually get rolling is the power play. It's huge. Carter H. Columbus and Buffalo this year weren't necessarily great teams, but they were entertaining to watch. Yes, 100%. Detroit was too. They weren't great. They were 3 teams. I throw Detroit into this as well. They were 3 teams last year. Buffalo found their mojo. They have that kind of swagger back, that Sabre swagger that they needed. Columbus is similar. They go out, they get Gaudreau. Detroit spends all the money, and they get Perron and Kubalik, Sherratt, all these different guys. Ville Husso's now their goaltender, so they do a bunch of different things. But I did get one call here that I did want to play. And it's honestly a very interesting question, so I'm curious to see what anybody in the chat says as well.
Hey, Chris, Lou here. Great show. Love it. Sitting here thinking about Carter Hart. Big fan. I've been a big fan since they drafted him. And I'm really fearful that he's going to end up like Ryan Miller, a great goaltender that was always cursed with bad teams. Just want to get your thoughts on that and maybe some other people's thoughts on great goalies that were cursed with bad teams. I just think it's an interesting topic. Thanks. Talk to you later.
So to me, that's a great question. I actually went and I did some digging on this because, again, look, as for the comparison of Hart and Miller, I'll start with that first. You know, great goalie on a bad team, there's a lot, and there definitely are some that I added to my list that you could be like, huh? But if you think about it, they kind of are. You know, for Hart, I think it's more of the team in front of him, and I don't think that, like, it's not Hart. I mean, I've said this for the past 3 years. It's not Carter Hart, and it won't be. He's a great goaltender. He's great talent. The Flyers have that. They have that talent, finally, and unfortunately, it's being screwed up. But the thing that we have to remember here is it's not reflected onto him because in 2020, 21, he wasn't great, and I think it was more the learning curve, and I think guys started to learn his game and learn his kind of tendencies. And then he was very solid last year. I mean, numbers are one thing. I don't think I've looked at any of our goaltenders' numbers in the last 2 seasons because there's just no point. If I'm being honest, I think a lot of the goaltenders in recent years that have just been, you know, good good goalies in general that are, here that have played. I have Linus Ullmark, who's another one until he signed with Boston, a good goalie that's always been on kind of a tough team. Robin Leonard, until he was with Vegas. Craig Anderson was another one from the one season essentially in Ottawa when they went to the conference finals, lost to Pitt. That's pretty much the only real year I could think of for Anderson. Kari Lehtinen was another one who I believe is like top 30 or maybe like top 35 in wins. Cam Ward's another one. I mean, he won the cup early in his career, but outside of that, I mean, he was kind of a pretty solid goalie on a tough Carolina team. Then they were rebuilding and all that stuff. Now they're great, but three goalies come to mind: Luongo, Habidon, and Schneider. Yeah, that's very true. But let's get into the guest for the show, Jim Jackson. He is here, as I can pull up. Here we go. Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Good. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So for obviously camp is starting. We have the rookie games coming up tonight. Obviously, we saw each other yesterday at rookie camp. Was there anything that you noticed from rookie camp yesterday? Is there anything that you're maybe looking forward to for Saturday, since unfortunately tonight's game isn't streamed, but Saturday's is?
You know what? I don't like to put too much stock into this early part of camp, Chris. These rookies are just basically getting their feet wet. I mean, if there was one theme, it wasn't necessarily from anything I saw on the ice. It was from what was said afterwards, that everybody's in great shape, and that guys that had to put some weight on, like Zamula, for instance. Igor Zamula is one guy who I think for sure had to add some strength. There are others it seemed to have done that, and as Ian LaPerriere said, these players did the work during the offseason. And also mentioned that 40 players were here on September 1st. I mean, that's a lot. So clearly the year last year being disappointing, the looking forward to Camp Tortorella. I think all of that has these guys on edge a little bit, but also really looking forward to getting going, rookies, veterans alike. So that's a good sign.
No, for sure. I agree. I mean, I think, obviously you mentioned Zamula. I think after Ian LaPerriere came in and said that 2 years ago he was listed at 170. So that's 22 pounds in 2 years. I mean, that's huge. And I think Bill Meltzer had a tweet today saying that he was around 160 when they first got him. So, I mean, that's like what, 32, 33 pounds, something like that. So that's huge. And he also mentioned Wyatt Wiley was another one. And again, I mean, it's not just rookies too. I mean, we've seen it from the guys, and the Flyers have tweeted it. The videos of Konechny and Sanheim and Hayes and all them guys just working out and getting physically fit for the year. I mean, because again, the Torts' camp is going to be hard, but kind of going off of that, when they hired Torts, what were your thoughts on that? Did you like the hire?
I did. And before I move on from the weight, I mean, putting weight on is not necessarily great for some players. I mean, for a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, if he were here, for instance, I mean, it's not like you'd be looking at his weight and wondering, he's got to put on weight. But for Igor Zamula, it's huge. He's a defenseman who has outstanding puck moving abilities and game sense. But in terms of pushing and shoving along the wall or in front of the net, he was getting out muscled. So if he takes care of that part of his game, he can be a very solid NHL defenseman. So that's why I'm really excited to see how he does this camp, how he does as the year rolls along. And there are others. Morgan Frost put on a little weight last year. It showed, I think, and I think he needs to continue to get stronger. Noah Cates probably has to get a little stronger. So you get these players that add that muscle, you can really increase their role with the team, and suddenly fringe players become legitimate NHL players. As for Tortorella, he's going to demand that. So they better put the weight on if he expected them to, and they better be in shape when they get set to start camp next week, because he's just not going to take it easy on anybody. Accountability is a big thing with John Tortorella. He will go through the wall for his players. He will defend his players to the max, especially from the media. But he will also demand that the players give him everything back. So it's a relationship that can get at times full of emotion, because he does obviously show his emotion, and he lets players know when he's not happy. But he also, in the long run, gets the respect of most of the players he coaches, because he cares about them. He's a great human being deep down. And it's like, I mean, we have relationships with some of our mentors or our parents, our father. And, I can go back to my childhood, and my father's my hero. I lost him when I was only 24 years old, but he
Right.
was the most important person in my life, and still
Mhm.
probably to this day is. And yet there were times I remember when I was a kid where I didn't really like my dad too much for the stuff he was doing. Discipline is tough sometimes, so you're not always going to have that player loving you at that moment, but you got to have their respect, and then eventually you've got to have their well-being at the heart of what you're doing. And John Tortorella does that. So I'm fascinated to see how this all plays out this year, because they do have some players on this team that are talented players that want to win, but they're kind of freelance players.
Right.
And, you're probably going to have to shove a little bit of that freelancing off to the side now and follow the system if you're going to get your ice time, if you're going to even stay in the lineup. So there will be, I think, some rocky moments, but I think in the long run, he will have this team whipped into some pretty good shape.
No, I agree with that for sure. I mean, I feel like, again, it's not going to be, I guess you could say the easiest thing out of, starting out for the year. I feel like it's going to kind of take a little bit to get used to it, but kind of going off of that, are there any, for you, are there any like expectations that you have for the team this year? Because I mean, for me, I feel like the last handful of years I've tried to kind of have some sort of an expectation, but I feel like the safest bet for this year, since unfortunately they haven't been great the last 2 years, it's kind of safe to have no expectation. For you, do you yourself have any or no?
I mean, expectations, as you say, are they're sorted. The last 2 years, we had great expectations, right?
Yeah.
And not much happened. The year before that, which was the year that included the pause, we didn't really think that much. We were wondering about what effect Alain Vigneault would have on this team. And that team from mid-November to mid-March was the second best team in the NHL. So expectations, I mean, it really doesn't mean much in any sport anymore, to be honest with you. It's good for ticket sales, I suppose, early in the year. It's good for Twitterverse during the offseason. It's good for talk radio during the offseason. But once the season starts, it's about what happens on the ice.
Right, exactly.
I will say this. The Flyers, I mean, I've talked about this with you, Chris. I'm not sure whether I've done it on a podcast, but I have talked to you about how I see the whole evolution of the Flyers. Everyone talks about the Flyers because of their last 2 years. They should do a complete rebuild, tear it all apart. They did that already. They did that under Ron Hextall in the mid-teens through the end of the teens. And that was starting to come to fruition without Hexy because of other issues. But that those players were starting to mature in that 1920 season. And it looked like it was all coming together. And they made it to the second round of the playoffs in the bubble into the game 7. But a lot of those young players, those Konecny's, Provorov, Sanheims, Carter Harts, were really starting to develop. The veteran core was still playing well. And so it looked like that rebuild was starting. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. They did all right in the bubble, but they came back from that. And it hasn't been the same since. And I can go through a ton of reasons, the biggest one being injuries, but there's others. They didn't have enough depth. And they had maybe Alain Vigneault lost his edge a little bit, I think, during the pandemic and some other things. But bottom line is it just fell apart. But that same core minus Claude Giroux, and that's a huge minus Jake Voracek too. But I think they replaced him with a quality player in Cam Atkinson. So you take Giroux and you don't really replace him. So that's the wild card for me. They have not replaced Claude. So, but outside of that, and it's a big thing to kind of just block out. But this group now gets a chance with a head coach who's been through the wars, knows how to get his team and whip them into shape. This is, their last chance, I would say, to show that rebuild was worth it. And if it doesn't go well, I would think there might be a pretty good exodus of players come trade deadline or come into the offseason. Injuries or no, there's no excuses anymore. But the bottom line is there is hope that can be, I think, rekindled some. And they've added some young players to the mix since your Cam Yorks, your Noah Cates, perhaps a Tyson Forster or some player of that ilk this year. So we'll see what Torts can do with it. They get a chance to show that they can be a competitive team, go for a playoff spot. And if it doesn't happen, then I think they need to really rethink things. If they had gotten Johnny Gaudreau, we might be taking the whole narrative might be different, right?
Right,
because
exactly.
the media overreacts to acquisitions of big players. Don't get me wrong. I wanted Johnny Gaudreau here. I'm full disclosure biased on the subject. My son played for his coach in high school. I know the family. I know how much he wanted to play here. So I wanted Johnny Gaudreau here. But in terms of the expectations, which was your original question, if the Flyers had gotten Johnny Gaudreau, the expectations would be way higher than they should be.
Even higher, right?
And because they didn't get him, they're probably way lower than they should be. The expectation should be somewhere in between, and that's probably where the team will fall. We shall see.
No, for sure. I think that's a great answer. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on, obviously, what they did free agency day. It felt like everybody's mood went from here to here.
And I gotta say, Chuck Fletcher kind of got us, I think, expecting that when he made the comment after the season about needing high-end talent.
Mm-hmm.
And he had already gotten Tony DeAngelo. And Tony DeAngelo, make no mistake about it, is high-end talent.
No, he is. I agree.
People here, I putting the off-ice things aside, and I'm not saying it should be put aside. I'm just saying, talking about just Tony DeAngelo on the ice and what he's going to do for the Flyers. I think people that haven't watched him are going to be pleasantly surprised. He's a dynamic offensive defenseman. He will cough the puck up once in a while, trying for the offensive play over making the safe play. Although John Tortorella worked with Zach Werenski, did great work with him in Columbus. Maybe he is able to help Tony in that area too. But the bottom line is Tony is a guy who can really, I think, help the power play. I think he can really help this team moving the puck up the ice. Great skater. And so he's high-end talent. Don't get me wrong. But I was thinking more maybe up front. And everyone knew that, Giroux had been traded. Gaudreau's kind of a Claude Giroux kind of player, probably better than Claude right now at this relative stages of their careers because he's 5 years younger. And, it just seemed like a fit for so many reasons. And so I think when Chuck said that, I think everyone jumped to that conclusion, including yours truly. And then it didn't happen. So there was a disappointment. But the bottom line is, if the Flyers got Johnny Gaudreau, or since they did not, should not be the difference between expecting a Stanley Cup and expecting a team to finish last. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau is a great player. He's a hell of a player. I love the guy. Not one player is not going to take a team from, Stanley Cup winner to bottom of the heap, which is where the expectations seem to go that day.
Right.
So it's somewhere in between, and we'll see how it all pans out. But I do think John Tortorella is going to have a positive impact on this team. I do think the team clearly has to stay healthy. I mean, they have to have Sean Couturier. They have to have Kevin Hayes playing as they can. If they can get Ryan Ellis, it would be at this point almost treating it like a bonus, but that would be huge. They've added DeAngelo, and they need the younger players to take a bigger bite out of the team. And if all that happens, this team will be competitive for a playoff spot.
No, for sure. I agree. I mean, I think realistically, everything is just staying healthy. I mean, if they can stay healthy and they have everybody for most of the year, they should be okay. Kind of going back to what you said about Tortorella and Werenski, another guy that kind of did that in Columbus was Brad Shaw, who the Flyers now have. They get Shaw, he seems like he's one of the more respected coaches, assistant coaches in the league defensively. What did you kind of think of that hire? I feel like the PK, again, a lot of people forget this too. The penalty kill was actually pretty good last year throughout, I guess you could say probably up till December or so. And then obviously it fell off with most other things, but what did you kind of think of that hire and also the Rocky Thompson hire for the power play? Because that obviously has to change for this season.
Yeah, I mean, I could have thrown special teams right into what I just said about that equation, but I'm kind of assuming if DeAngelo has a positive impact and the younger players take a bigger bite and Sean Couturier and all these guys are healthy, that their special teams will be better.
Yeah.
But without question, they have to have better special teams. And if you just give the team last year, even as beat up as they were, mediocre special teams, let's say their power play and penalty kill finished 15th or 16th, as opposed to down right near the bottom and at the bottom, that team wins many more games because the Flyers were within one goal in the third period of something like 82% of their games last year. So they were in a lot of games. They just couldn't quite get over the hump. They'd allow a bad goal at the wrong time, or they just couldn't score that goal to tie a game up in the third. You change that special team and you have an extra power play goal a game or one less power play goal against scored on you per game, and all of a sudden you're winning those games. So absolutely, those are key. And Brad Shaw comes with a very extensive and impressive resume. Rocky Thompson, not as detailed, but what he's done in shorter period of time has been impressive. I don't think when we saw Rocky Thompson as a player, we thought he'd be a power play specialist, but as a coach, he certainly seems to have had some good ideas. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do. I mean, in terms of penalty kill, usually it's goaltending and hard work, but We'll see what Brad Shaw can do with that. And then the power play, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with that. The Flyers, of course, for so long have been driven from the hash mark with G. That's going to change. I think Tony's going to run the power play, but we'll see. Maybe they have a different setup. Maybe they work it from behind the net. They have some good net front presence, guys. So I can't wait to see as we get going here in training camp and then into the season what Rocky tries to do with the power play. It can't be worse than it was last year. It really can't.
Yeah.
But they have to get it, they have to climb significantly in that area to be competitive. No question about it.
No, for sure. I mean, again, they have a lot of options, and you have your younger guys in Frost and Cates, and even if they were to put Cates in the power play, they could. Obviously, you still have the situation with JVR. I mean, pretty much every defenseman they have outside of Braun could probably quarterback the power play. I mean, if you wanted, they could do the 2 defenseman unit. So there's so many different avenues they could kind of take with that. As for the penalty kill, you talked about goaltending a little bit. You hinted on that. Are you sold on Sandstrom yet? Because I kind of look at Sandstrom as, again, he only played 5 games with an 0-4-1. He had that one rough game against Winnipeg last year. Outside of that, he played well, but they didn't play good in front of him. I'm personally not really sold on him because, again, for just the team alone this year, they're banging on a lot, whether it's injuries or younger players stepping up. And then you have Sandstrom, who has to at least come in and play probably maybe 20, 25, 30 games bearing on injury. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, knock on wood. But going off that, are you sold on Sandstrom yet or no?
No, I'm not sold on Carter Hart. I mean,
yeah,
I use goaltenders on a year-to-year basis. It's kind of become like kickers. It's kind of become like closers in baseball, kickers in football, that you just don't know what you're getting year to year with goalies. I'm a huge Carter Hart supporter. So when I say I'm not sold on him, I don't mean I'm not sold on him as a hockey player, but right. I want to see Carter Hart 22, 23. I don't know what that's going to be. I really actually have extremely high hopes for Carter. If he can stay healthy, playing in a system that has structure to it, that is so about protecting the house, blocking shots, all that, I think he could take off this year. I really do. And I think Carter is probably determined to do that. As for Sandstrom, no way am I sold on a guy who's only played 5 games at the NHL level. I do think he deserves a shot, and I think he's going to get that shot in training camp. Grosnick is probably going to be the backup, at least if everything's kind of even in training camp. But if Sandstrom comes in here and has a great camp, I think he can earn that reserve spot. And he has one more game experience in the NHL than Grosnick. So the only thing is Grosnick has more experience, obviously, as a professional and played extremely well last year in the AHL. But, I mean, I do think we're looking at a shot at it for Sandstrom. Samuel Erson's a guy you want to watch, too. He's not ready yet, but finally healthy, apparently. I was pretty high on him just a year ago. So they have some depth there. I'd like to have a more experienced guy somewhere along the line. There are those guys that are out there that they can probably acquire. Certainly if Carter Hart goes down with an injury, knock on wood, but if he does, they're going to have to. And the Fedotov was obviously going to be part of the equation as well, and that got derailed by something completely out of hockey. So you can see a little bit why they're in that predicament. But if Carter goes down, I would think they're going to have to go out and get a guy that's got some NHL games under his belt. So we'll see. But Sandstrom, I think he'll get a shot to at least be the backup. No,
for sure. I agree. I mean, realistically, they don't really have any cap space. I mean, I think that right now they're 49 and 50 contracts, so they'd have to do a couple moves to at least try to get some other goaltender in here. But Jim, I got one last question for you. It's kind of more of a personal question. If you had to go over the years of your whole career, is there any one moment or whether it's a goal, a save, hit, anything like that you could maybe pick that's your favorite, or no, is it just too hard?
I'm asked this a lot.
Yeah.
And I, for many years, went with the not surprising choice of Keith Primo's goal in 2000 because it ended the longest game still in the modern history of the NHL. I mean, since forward passing was allowed. So that is still clearly one of them. There were 2 moments from the 2010 season that were amazing. The shootout, obviously, with Bush making the save, and the Game 7 against Boston when they completed the comeback from 3-0 down, both in the series and in that game. And then there's the Roenick goal against Toronto in 2004, where he put him on to the conference finals after Sammy Kapanen scrambled back to the bench. Those are the 4 that come rushing to my mind, and I now have done enough of these that's what I say all the time. But Chris, to be honest with you, and I don't mean this to be trite, when my feet hit the ground in the morning, when my feet hit the ground the morning of the 24th, which is just a week and a day away, I will be happier than anything, because that means I'm doing a game. It's a preseason game, but it's a game. And whenever I have a game to do that night, that day is a good day. There are so many moments throughout my career of Claude Giroux gave me a whole bunch all by himself.
Yeah.
Peter Forsberg in a very limited time. Eric Lindros gave me a ton. John Leclerc, Eric Desjardins, Kimmo Timonen. I mean, I can go right down the list. There's so many great players, so many great moments, great fights.
Yeah.
Ty Domi in the penalty box moments too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of them. So it's very hard to pick one.
Right.
But those four probably because they were in momentous occasions. They were all in the playoffs, and they're probably, well, one wasn't the playoffs, but the shootout to get into the playoffs. So it's all those. But really, every game. That's what I love about my job. Every game there could be another one, and we hope for that. And I hope this year we have some really good moments with this team, because I think they're going to be more competitive. I think Tortorella is going to make a lot of these games be closer. There might be more low scoring, but I think they'll be closer. And, close games make for better moments.
That's a great answer. I love it. Jim, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Again, good luck this year. Best luck with everything. And I'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, Chris. See you at the rink. And JimJacksonBroadcasting.com for all those that want to do some broadcast coaching or cameo or voiceovers or any of that. I just revamped that website, so I got to throw that out there.
Nice. Oh, yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Take care.
All right. That was Jim Jackson, everybody. Again, awesome stuff with this one. Thank you so much for all the support, and I will see you guys next week.